Reading notes, book notes, more generally from today, Wednesday, 24 January 2024, pages 1 to 80. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. So this is a 1968 original publishing in copyright. And this is the May 1982 First Ballantine Books edition. So this is the, yes, 1968. Publisher's note, 1968 for the publishing. First publishing. So this is the version that came out, not version, edition that came out after it was adapted into a film. So the movie Blade Runner is based on this. Not Blade Runner 2049 and anything after that. The one from a while ago. So what, 1980s? So this it bears the movie art, so to speak. So this was something released. What would that be? 14 years after the book was released initially. So this is an edition I bought and read for the first time back in approximately 2018, 2019 when I was living in California. And it's kind of fun to return to it now because the book is set in San Francisco and I think they eventually make it up to Seattle. But I was living in California at the time, San Francisco Bay Area, and now I'm living in the Seattle area. So I'm like, here we go. It's like I'm catching the second half of the book by, that kind of thing. Reading it now here. And the first time I read it, it was 2018, 2019 in the book. While written, published in 1968, was actually set, this time setting is 2021, and January 2021 more specifically. So now I'm not only have I changed my residence and am reading this in a different location setting in the book, or place at least mentioned, I am now reading it after the time setting of the book. Which is kind of cool. Well, not if somebody sets the year of a novel and the year they write it, or approximately when they write it. If one doesn't catch it when it comes out, they can't do that. When they like this author writes about the future, or well, not about the future, but sets it in a future year, I can read it. I got to it before the setting of the book, so I've read it before and after the story, which is kind of cool in its own way. So that is a little bit about the book. And this is so this is my first, not my first time reading it, but my first time reading it after the year in which the book is set, 2021. So yeah. Okay, so that's the introduction. And I'm doing 80 pages. So this is a new paginated number approach. So pages 1 to 80 inclusive. The start corresponded to the start of book on page 1 and cutoff corresponded to end of sentence and end of paragraph on page 80. All right, so book notes. This is an older book. I bought it used, so it did look like this. I was not alive when this book was released. Approximately 1993. This was 1982. Over a decade older than me, this book. Okay. Depending on when it was printed, so 1982. Well, wait, no, it says May 1982. So yeah, even if I was born in August 1992, this is still over a decade older than me. Okay. I think that is a good book note. And it has a bit of wear, some of which came with the book when I got it, and some of which I have added. I'm reading it this time, and last time I went through, I dog-eared. I was dog-earing a lot of the books I read. I was reading a bunch of books, like 50 books a year, which for me is a lot. For some people, like speed readers and people who that's like the bulk of their YouTube channel, that might not be very much, especially if they're all about quantity, not necessarily quality of the books. And so I tend to choose higher quality, and I make notes, and I dog-ear, and sometimes I write extensive notes, and sometimes I make videos dedicated to a book. More recently. But back then it was like 50 books a year, kind of. I think there was like one flare-up year. And so when I read this book, I tried to dog-ear it less, and I dog-eared it 3 times. And so now, as I'm going through the book, I am unfolding the dog ears. So that's a book note, is the pages are resilient, that even after being dog-eared for, what would that be, 4 to 5 years? No, 5 to 6 years? 5 years approximately. I can unbend the dog ear and the page remains intact. Like this is a page. It's rather remarkable, actually. I like the page style. I like it's, 1.0 spacing, so full text pages. None of that 1.5 or 2.0 spacing. Right? The pages are full of text. I love that personally as a reader. I love that it's a small size. I can fit it in my hand and hold it like this. And there's not surplus book for my hands. I like the smooth exterior. Yeah, I like the construction and design. Well printed. The pages are thicker, so I can faintly see the text through the page, but not so much that it interferes with my reading of the page. And it's a good thickness for turning, page thickness. Reading notes. So there's a man, Rick Deckard, who has a wife, Iran, name of the wife in the book, and they have a pet electric sheep. And the book is set, this is after the father of Iran gave them both real sheep, but it died from tetanus and falling over. And so then they got an electric sheep. And they have electric sheep because it's set in 2021 and electronics are going to be all the rage. World War Terminus happened and a bunch of people decided to leave Earth and colonize planets such as Mars. I'm just going to pause in reading this and going, wow, so many tech leaders of today have decided to build the universe that Philip K. Dick writes about in this book. It's incredible, right? And that is accurate. They didn't come up with the idea themselves. This book, 1968, the story, it's older than the tech leaders who do that kind of thing. So they're enacting this guy's vision. Why? I don't know. And if they lie and say I haven't read it, and be like, is your favorite book what is it, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Ender's Game or something like that? Invalidated. You lie. So that just came up. I was like, so there's a bunch of emphasis on, electronics in this book, electronic hovercraft or vehicles or pets and stuff like that, or electronic boxes where a woman can program in her a woe is me depression for the day, let me tune in to the despair of humanity. And I'm like, well, isn't that just entirely accurate of this, where we are as a world, right? To these days. Along with, so what's going on after World War Terminus is a bunch of people have left, and some people remain, like this guy in San Francisco, and some people in Seattle, with some electronic companies, or companies in charge of, humanoid robots, which are called androids. So robots are all the rage these days too, along with, space travel and stuff. And so the androids aren't supposed to be here after the war, they're supposed to be in outer space, not back on Earth. But, the people who went and blew things up and left the planet didn't really clean up after themselves. So the people who've been cleaning up after themselves are these people who go and bounty hunters who go and hunt the androids down and dispose of them, these robots, and the Russians. So essentially Russians and American bounty hunters are on cleanup duty after the rich, techies depart. And I'm like, this is either people haven't read this and we are, those of us who have read it are mind controlling the vast majority of society to be like guinea pigs. Not guinea pigs, but they're that easy to control. But that's kind of what the book is about, right? These humanoid robots, androids, all think the same, act the same. So they administer, this is part of what I read, like a personality test, so to speak. And since they all act the same, kind of thing, they can be pretty easy to identify and flare up, get them to react in a certain way, say something that intentionally provokes them and they react the same way and that kind of stuff. And then a fad for this book is naming an owl Scrappy, because, you know, this owl was scrappy to have survived the fallout after the war. You know, and like nowadays there might be somebody naming a puppy Mochi because they're like, well, they survived the war fallout after the war, you know, World War II kind of thing, and rice in Japan and stuff like that. So it's like that person might be analogous to a humanoid robot in this book if somebody did something like that with that kind of intent. So yes, and so I've made it through that stuff, and so this guy gets kind of called in for the day, has kind of the interaction with the wife, gets called in for the day, and there's another character. So the book takes on multiple views of like a couple different characters. So one is out there collecting electric animals, but works for like a vet. So then sometimes real animals, but differentiating between real animals and electric animals. And it can be really hard to do with the newer versions of the electronics. And then like this other guy has to go and administer a test to one of the new androids, Nexus 6. And it's an 18-year-old Rachel Rosen, you know, that just looks so dashing, and all that kind of stuff. And then once he's done that, he goes and talks to somebody, and then goes off into, I'm at the part where he's off to the opera in San Francisco to collect one of the newest Nexus 6s. If I didn't lose you, that's good. If I did lose you, I apologize. It's a fast-moving book. It's timely, but I think this book also points out a lot of the fads and stuff that gets pushed to this day has been the case since the 1960s. It's nothing new. It's not technically original, right? Even if the people who are pushing it are new players of this game, so to speak, of electronics and space travel and colonization and pushing World War II or a world war, I should say, and nuclear fallout and television shows with propaganda and like the Russians and stuff. It briefly touches on television and propaganda and stuff like that. Yeah, it's been going on for a long time, and this is just a reminder that this book is over 50 years. The novel is over 50 years old. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. This new players, not groundbreaking original ideas though. If none other than this book. You've beaten them to the punch by over 50 years. Kind of thing. So yeah, it's a healthy reminder about stuff like that. Just because things are framed as new in the press doesn't mean the ideas are new by a long shot sometimes. Okay, conclusion. That's it for today. It's a 219 page book. So we'll see how long it takes me to read. But those are my notes for today. No, 216 page book. So those are my notes for today. I'm Tanis Coralee Leonhardi. This is my YouTube channel, Tanis Leonhardi. And thank you for joining me whenever you are joining me. And wherever you are joining me from.